name is Vusi Thembekwayo. I'm a global business speaker and venture capitalist. You're watching RISKAfrica TV. Public speaking, I think I had the benefit of starting early, right? So I started public speaking at 15 in school. I was just a naughty kid, and I was going to get detention. And what had happened was, the teacher said to me, either I put you on detention or you join the public speaking society, because you're always talking. It's like, well, you don't have a single black mother and go home and tell her you're on detention. It doesn't end well for you. My mom used to call the back of her hand the AAK, the Attitude Adjustment Club. So anyway, I was like, well, I'll do this thing. So I went into the public speaking, and that was amazing. The first time I did it, I didn't enjoy it as much, and it kind of grew on me. And then by the time I was 17, I was like doing well. I was winning competitions, I was winning championships. So I was lucky that I had an early start, and that I've been able to use that gift to propel me and put me into different spaces. Yeah, because I think the word passion had equity in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If you were meeting as a firm, as a team, as an organization, and you were talking about beating your competitors, you would say we need to be passionate, because they weren't. The truth is, every organization, and I've had the privilege of being a professional speaker now for 15 years. I've worked in all sectors with most businesses. Everybody's talking about being passionate. So the point is, if you're passionate, you're now average, because everybody is. What is required, I think, is to be obsessed. And obsessed people exhibit different characteristics. The first thing about being obsessed is ownership, right? That I want to own this thing, and that even if it's not part of what I do, I'm going to take ownership and see it through. So you can't have phrases in your firm like, it's not my job. That can't happen. The second thing about people who are obsessed is they relentlessly curious, looking all the time for new ideas, and are thinking all the time about how they can improve themselves, even when they're not in their place of work. Because work is not a place we go to, it's something we do. It's an extension of who we are. And I think the third thing about being obsessed, which differentiates obsessed people, is that they come from a point of humility. They recognize that they don't know everything. Because the minute you think you know everything, you think there's nothing further to learn. The very idea that I don't know much means that I'm always looking for new ideas, new knowledge, and new information. I've found that those three kind of characteristics in people can help you create a culture of obsession in a firm. I think one of the challenges in the world today is because there is so much technological change happening that everybody is thinking about the technological change. And I think the unvaried constant is the people. Businesses today need people. Businesses exist for people. And businesses deliver value to communities and people. And I think that unvaried constant is not going away. Quite the contrary, it's going to get more amplified. I think the more digital the way we do things is, the more longing there will be for human connection and human touch. And if you are the kind of team, the kind of leader, the kind of person who really values humanity, relationships, earnestness, those are things that are going to stand you in good stead. I would say to any leader today that the single most important component of building a firm is people. You can buy technology, you can insource and outsource, you can have the incorrect technology strategy and change it, but getting the right people, that's the whole game, right? And I think as leaders, we have to focus more attention on the people we lead, rather than the technology that's disrupting us, and rather than the markets we're trying to serve. If you get the people right, they kind of get to do the other parts for you. Absolutely. I think artificial intelligence is many things and can achieve many things, but we still need human creativity. You still need art, you need poetry. Um, and I often say, particularly to entrepreneurs, business is a form of creativity. Creativity is not something creatives do. We're all doing it. When you're creating a new product, you're being creative. When you are creating a marketing campaign, you're being creative. When you're coming up with a pricing strategy, you're being creative. When you're thinking about how do I engage my customers in a different way, that requires that you unlock in yourself a sense of creativity. And I think artificial intelligence is more efficient than human beings at the very things human beings shouldn't be doing in the first place. So, there was a time when people were working in factories and they went, we're not machines, we can't do this. Great, now you don't have to. There's something that else can do it for us. So where do we put you now? Because now we don't need you in the production line anymore, counting how many widgets are coming through per hour and running some sort of pivot table. Where do we put you now? Maybe we can use your skills somewhere else. Maybe we could put you in the market to go and meet with our new prospective customers and talk about what kind of product we could have for these customers, because that would require some creativity. I'm really excited, I think, by what artificial intelligence would do, because I think what it is going to do, it's going to free up capacity and it's going to allow people to move into higher value work. It's no different to when 90% of the global labor force was in the agricultural sector, because at the time there was no combustion engine, then therefore no tractors. And all of a sudden when there were tractors, you just didn't need people doing much of the job anymore around the plowing, so people could do higher value work. I think that's exactly where we are. So the agility quotient says there are different types of knowledge institutions in running a business. The first kind of knowledge institution is data. This is the intellectual part of the business. Here you need your data scientists, your business analysts, you need your accountants, your lawyers. You need people who work in the hard sciences that are pulling and extracting every single day data, numbers on a spreadsheet that give you a sense of what's happening and the legislation that forms that, right? That's the intellectual data required. We've just had a conversation about the emotional knowledge institution, building relationships with people, and how do you leverage those relationships and extend them. The agility quotient is about, so how do you build a knowledge institution that allows you to be agile? And that's not about emotion, it's not about intellect, it's about culture, it's about how do we work. To do that, there are a couple of things you've got to do. The first thing you've got to do is you have to have what we call a low center of gravity, which means you have to have an environment where there is no ego, no I am the boss. I often tell my clients, imagine King Arthur's round table. The reason he created it was absent of the pyramid structure where he is the king, read the CEO. He needed a structure where all ideas were equal, independent of who was bringing the idea forward. I had the amazing privilege of meeting with a fellow called, you might know him, Raymond Ackerman, who built Pick and Pay. And I asked him, I said, so how did you do it? And he gave me a whole host of ideas. One of the ideas was he spoke about this thing of leading using the business case. He said, generally in organizations we discriminate because we've been taught to. Directors meet with directors. Managers have a management meeting. Supervisors have a supervisor's indaba, right? So there was this idea that ideas are equal based on where you sit in the pyramid. He said, what I did is I created a platform in the business where anybody could come up with an idea, and that person would come up with the idea anonymously, because I didn't want people to go, well, that's a terrible idea because a cashier came up with it. It's a great idea because it's just a great idea. And that's what happens when you have an environment of a low center of gravity. It's hard to do. How do you listen, for instance, to an idea of a person who's not particularly articulate in English, right? How do you implement an idea of a person who comes from a completely different discipline to you? They see a financial problem as a marketing problem because you're going, we're 20% down on profitability. And they're going, well, you're 20% down on profitability because you're not engaging with your customers the correct way. It's a financial problem, but they're seeing it as a marketing problem. When you allow your space to be rid of titles and sophistry and hierarchy and the pomp and ceremony of being in a management structure, and it's just about people and it's about the validity of the idea, then you can truly be agile. I'll give you one final story. It's a known fact that the Titanic received a ticker tape. Back in the olden days, they used to send communication using ticker tapes. And the Titanic received, a ticker tape from the sea rescue authorities, letting them know they were in iceberg territory and they were going too fast. What happened was, the fellow who got the ticker tape was at the base of the Titanic. He was working as one of the crew members, and the message needed to reach the captain. And on its way to reaching the captain, the message got stalled by middle management in between, and the captain never got the message. And so you had a Titanic event, not because the information wasn't there, but because the information was attached to a profile of a person. Many businesses can avoid the Titanic event just by simply listening to the idea. I think the single most important question every single organization has to ask themselves every single day, as a true north of why you exist, why you're here, is what problem are you solving? I think what happens in businesses, right? Generally, entrepreneurs who start businesses started with the impetus of a particular problem. They identify something and they go, there's a better way to do this, or there is another way to do something. And so they create this business. But over time, as the business matures, it loses the entrepreneurial memory of what was the original problem you were solving. And the business gets clouded in complexity. Now it becomes about rules, compliance, systems, processes. It becomes about risk management and just making sure you're keeping the lights on. And you could lose that true north question. Why are we here? What problem are we solving? I recommend that to every single business leader, every single day, is make sure your people are clear on the problem you are solving. Really doesn't matter. If you're ShopRite Checkers, the problem you're solving is how do you get people at the base of the pyramid to afford decent food? So you offer them lowest prices every day. Ergo their tagline. And it would be different to a Woolworths, for instance, which is about more premium goods for a more premium market. But once you're clear and there's absolute clarity on the problem, it tends to generate a synchronicity of efforts, because then finance knows what they need to do, marketing does, sales does, everybody's clear. They go, well, if that's the problem, then that's how we solve it. Just a final note on this. Problems change. And so too should solutions. Sometimes what holds organizations back from changing is they're trying to solve a problem that's no longer there. But because you're really good at solving that problem, it's what we call the competency bias. You want to make every problem that problem because you've got the solution to it, right? So you are Smith Corona, the manufacturer of typewriters, and you think every single device has to operate like a typewriter. You don't see the computers coming. That competency bias is often what holds teams back. So if you are clear on the problem you're solving and you use the thing we spoke about, the low center of gravity, then you're aware that we could solve a new problem and we don't have the answers, which means we need to be curious to get all the information. And that's how it breeds a culture of continuous innovation, continuous refreshment, and continuous renewal of yourselves as a team, as a business, but also the mission for which you exist.